Hi everyone, welcome to Membership Voice. I'm Kerro O'Shea, the coordinator of The Voice and the host for this evening's webinar. Just admitting some more people. Tonight we're continuing the conversation about the crucial regionalisation pilot proposal that I'm sure everyone's aware of, and I'm delighted to welcome back Regionalisation co-chair Ingrid Waugh. Welcome, Ingrid.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you, Kira.
And Communications Operations Manager, fancy title that, Amanda Barnes, who I'm sure most in the audience will know. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Great to be here. Love to have another conversation about this important topic.
It's great. It's great to have you with us. Just admitting some more people. Okay, but before we go any further, it's very important for me at this stage to acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm hosting tonight's webinar. I acknowledge the strength of their continuing culture and offer my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and note some of the wonderful things that happened with NAIDOC week, which is just completed, and fabulous thing that. At this stage, I'm going to hand over for regionalisation and I'm going to hand over initially to Amanda to lead off, please, Amanda.
Thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge the Dharawal people on whose land I am currently habitating and joining this meeting from. So thank you, Caro, for having us again. This is a very crucial topic. We have a significant time restraints on this. So it's awesome that Caro has given us another session to get some more information out there. We're going to start today by hearing from a few Rotarians from all over the zone, some different Rotarians, a couple of past RI directors and some, regular Rotarians and what they have to say about regionalisation. And a quick little video we put together. You'll be seeing more of these coming out over the next couple of weeks, but this is sort of the first taster of some of the quotes and interviews we've been collecting from various people from all over the zone and what they have to say about regionalisation. So, Caro, please the video.
I think in the Western world of Rotary, including Japan, we've seen huge drop-offs in numbers. And clearly over the last 25, 30 years, there's been a change in how Rotary has been operating those places. And what's happening is that nobody has been able to adapt to the changes that are happening in Rotary or any other organisation, whether it's Lions, Scouts, churches or whatever. And so we have to do something different to what we have been doing. And so I think Rotary International recognised that, particularly in the Western world, that we have to do something different to what we've been doing in the past.
And I was encouraged by the recent Council on Legislation where 324 delegates voted for this pilot and 150 against. So it was 2-1 and I think that's an organisation that's known to be pretty conservative. So clearly the number of people in the world are wanting to look at this pilot pretty closely.
Whilst a lot of people may not agree with some of the things that have been put forward or said about regionalisation, this is a great opportunity for us to take control of our own Rotary in Australia and New Zealand, to become ourselves, so that we can then look after ourselves, we can be responsible for our own actions here in Australia and in New Zealand.
I think the word regionalisation scares many, as ultimately it means change. But we have to change to grow. We've been doing the same old thing for the past 20 plus years and it's just not working. So let's be bold, trying something new. Let's be part of a new way of doing good in the world.
I suspect that a lot of our clubs are in a comfort zone, very happy where they are, probably probably use their districts for a bit of support. I doubt as many would say that the district governor's visit is a highlight of the year, but I'd urge the clubs to think past their current model. Our decline in membership has been horrific really in the last decade, and unless we are prepared to change and look at other ways of doing our Rotary, then we're not going to have Rotary clubs. And I just think it's a tragedy that all the good work that we've done for the last 100 and whatever years could well be wasted. So I think the people and whoever's responsible for driving this change needs to make sure their market research from the clubs is really, really robust. I mean, what do the clubs want? I can see that if we're to have a future, we clearly need to spend some time around refreshing our membership. I can see that PR with a straight Australia, Pacific Island and New Zealand focus could be more effective than now. I think we could do projects that are visible. I think we could establish partnerships, social media, all of that stuff, but do it in a way that fits the Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Island model. Even across that, we've got, a number of countries to cover. So I think the message we've got to somehow get to the clubs is this is a way to strengthen Rotary in our region, which is good for our communities and good for Rotary in the future.
In Australia, this will be new. There's only going to be two zones who are going to come into the regionalisation plan at this stage, and that is Great Britain and Ireland, and here in Australia, New Zealand. So I think we're very fortunate to be able to be included in this initial project. We need, even if clubs don't agree with it wholly or what is planned, we need them to support regionalisation, and we can tweak it and change it as we go along, but we need to get it up and running. That's our first objective. Then we can fine-tune it to the way that we want it here in Australia and New Zealand.
I'm of the view that the current district model and the district governor model is broken, has been broken for a long time, is a long way out of date, and if we get the new model right and can bring new fresh leadership with some continuity in leadership, we've got a chance.
The opportunity that regionalisation provides for Zone 8 is unparalleled. For this area to be able to shape the future of Rotary, not only in this region and this zone, but globally, and to ensure that Rotary itself is a stronger, more dynamic organisation that is going to take us well into the future. For those reasons, regionalisation is just, it has my full support.
If we can have a central regional council, a one voice for Rotary, then I believe that opens up opportunities for corporate sponsorship. It certainly opens up opportunities to work with NGOs and government organisations. At the moment, if think for a moment, if you're the chief executive of Toyota and you want to partner with Rotary, you've got to, in New Zealand and Australia, you've got to deal with 30-something district governors. Yesterday, you got 30 more new ones, and if you hadn't quite got across the line, you've got to deal with them. It's just, we're impossible to deal with. And so to do joint venture anything, we are impossible to deal with. So I think that's huge. One voice in that space could move us miles.
Need to support it. This is our greatest opportunity to have control of our own destiny for Rotary in Australia. Even if they do not agree with everything at the moment, I would still urge them to vote for it so that we can start the process to have our own Rotary International here in Australia and in New Zealand. It'll be our own unique style of Rotary.
So that video will be available to you guys to use and share amongst your friends and family and whatnot shortly. And once the recording of this session comes out as well. So I think I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about my perspective on this, and then we'll hand over to Ingrid for an update on the process, and then it'll be over to you guys for questions. I guess one of the things that past RI Director Noel Travascus just said in his session is we haven't got it all figured out just yet, but the vote is really to vote to allow the process. Yeah. So, we've got some ideas around models and things like that, but the vote is about voting to try. Yeah. I think, if we go through the 3-year pilot and we don't like where we end up, or we don't think we come across nothing better, we can always, worst case scenario, return to the model we're currently at, which I fear will see Rotary die in our region. But nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think for me, I was so excited to be able to be a part of this process and to be a part of the team working to, inform the Rotarians and Rotaractors across our zone about this amazing opportunity. I see it as an opportunity to leave a legacy in Rotary, in our zone, and across the world, as Sean spoke to in that video as well. If we can, this is our chance to make an impact, to, trial, test, develop a form of Rotary that works for us, for our region. A lot of the things that we, see at the moment are still quite Americanized because that's where it came from, but nothing's changed it to this point. This is our opportunity to leave a legacy for Rotary in the future. And I truly believe if we don't take up this opportunity, we'll wait a couple more years and then Rotary International will come and inform us as to what the new structure will look like. I think this is our chance to try and see what will work for us. For those of you who don't know me, I came up through Rotaract. I've been around for 17 years now in the Rotary family, and I just love it. I've had so many Rotary moments that I'm such a Rotarian now. I'm not a member of a club. I'm not a member of a district. I'm a Rotarian. My dad's here tonight. He was the guy who told me to go. I was the secretary before the end of the first meeting. I live Rotary and it's so important to me. And I think that regionalisation is honestly the only thing that's going to see it continue and to even thrive in our zone. It's been a long time coming. I remember when Stuart Hill brought out his conversations around the winds of change. And, that excited me back then. It's a good few years ago now. But it's so important for us to look at this now. I think it's long overdue, but I think now is better late than never. But I think if we leave it too much longer, it will be too late. So honestly, I could go on for ages, but I'll stop. Love this idea, love the pilot, look forward to your questions, look forward to having this conversation with more of you. But yeah, I will hand over to Ingrid for an update and then we'll come to you for questions.
Thanks, Amanda. So I'm assuming that many of you either have or will be about to see your club presentation. So I'm not going to bore you with a whole lot of slides. I'm going to give you an update on some of the key things that are happening. First up is that we are now in the middle, well, I know probably more at the beginning, of a process of providing briefings to every club across the zone. So that's 1,300 Rotary clubs. Some of them are being briefed by individually and some by clusters and Zooms or in other collective mechanisms. Every single district has somebody that we have, in true Rotary fashion, we have an acronym, a Rotary District Regionalisation Rep. And so we have asked, so every district, has somebody who is coordinating those presentations. If your club doesn't yet have a presentation booked in, you can contact Amanda directly or go to your current governor or find out who your district rep is to do that. The purpose of those presentations is to provide clubs with information about what they're voting for and why a vote is important. Now, one of the things I did want to update on tonight is the vote, just to be really, really clear about that. And I will share my screen here for one slide. Oops, where's it gone? There's a, sorry about that. Let me just. So we're working to the guidelines that Rotary International have given us for the vote. That is that each club has one vote. Doesn't matter how big or small the club is, so each club has one vote. If a club doesn't vote, either because they choose not to or they forget to, it's a no vote. So we are really very, very keen that every single club takes the opportunity to have a vote. We require 2/3 of clubs in each district to vote yes for us to proceed with this pilot. So that's 2/3 of clubs. Oh, I don't know why that's doing that, sorry. Back to that. It's 2/3 of clubs in each district to vote yes. The clubs have a vote first, and then when they have had a vote, the district governors have a vote. The reason the district governors have a vote is because it's a joint activity that will happen after this, and they need to endorse the vote. They will know how their clubs have voted, i.e. they will know what percentage of clubs have voted yes before they cast their vote. They will not know which clubs have voted yes and which clubs have voted no. So that's very important, that it is a secret ballot. All the district governor will know is what the total percentage is. And what the vote, we are currently in discussions with the Rotary International Legal Council just to clarify a couple of things. One of them is the actual wording of the vote. We have been promoting that the vote is to explore, develop and test alternative ways of operating Rotary in our zone and Rotaract in our zone. The vote is not a yes or no. I'm going to stop sharing because it keeps turning the page. The vote is not a yes for the pilot, no, we don't want to change. I know that has been a perception that if we vote no, it means we don't want change. That is not what we're saying. Rotary has been changing incrementally for many, many years. This is an opportunity for us to create a step change, a real change. So your yes vote will mean you want to actually trial something new in our part of the world. Or a no vote will be, I don't want to participate in the pilot. So just to be clear on that. The other area that we are currently clarifying with the Rotary legal people is what the vote will be for Rotaract, because the council, the manual of procedure and code of policies at the moment doesn't allow a formal vote, but we are looking at ways to make that happen. I know there are a couple of questions in the chat about the vote. We will know the actual wording of the vote as soon as we get our advice back from the RI Legal Counsel, which I am expecting this week. And then we will make sure that that is clearly, but what is on that slide is not a long way off. You know, that is the intent of the vote. So that's one key thing that we need to make sure that everybody's clear about as an update. Secondly, I guess one of the things that has been happening is as we've got working through the club presentations, we're getting lots and lots of questions. So those questions will be incorporated into the frequently asked questions that are on the website, but do make sure that when your clubs are having their presentation, that you do make available to them, either by giving access to the link or physically, the fact sheet. We have two versions of the fact sheet. We have a one-pager, which is a simplified version, and a much more detailed two-pager. We also have it translated into French for our French-speaking clubs now, as we do with the PowerPoint. The other thing is just thinking, I was just reflecting, I've just come from a briefing in my own district tonight, and there are lots of questions about what the future structure looks like. We have said all the way along, and Stuart Heal talked about this in his video, that we are looking at a regional council. We're certainly looking at a regional structure. And the starting point is a regional council, which will be representative and elected, with supporting committees. We will have specialist functional committees or people from across our zone who will be available to provide support to clubs. And we are also looking at the role of what is currently called an area or community leader, who will be a key leadership role supporting clubs directly. That will be a motivational role to actually work directly with clubs and help them to grow, to do the things that they want to do differently, to collaborate and so on. One of the things that got me thinking about was, what are we moving from and what are we moving to? And just thinking about the 5 key areas that we're focusing on. There are many others, but for example, one voice. As Stuart said in his video, at the moment we're very fragmented. Every district does their own thing. It can often be very difficult to find somebody who is prepared to be your not the spokesperson, because that's usually the district governor, but to be actually your promotional public image person. We have the opportunity to actually draw on the best of the resources from across the zone to help us get those messages out there. Providing support to clubs. Now, clubs do get support from their districts at the moment, and from their area governors and their district governors, and they, as a past district governor, I know I did my absolute best in my year as a district governor to provide as much support to the clubs as I could. But I think there are opportunities with roles that are at least 2 years long to provide better support to clubs, more targeted support that meets those specific needs. And those will provide different leadership opportunities, which we hope will be more doable. We're definitely looking at being more efficient, using technology. Look at what we've done in the last 2 years since COVID arrived and how we've used technology. And we really, really want to encourage collaboration. Not at the moment, we do collaboration, between clubs, usually within a cluster, in my experience anyway. It might be different for other people, but what could we do? Imagine if we could actually get across Australia and New Zealand and our Pacific Islands to do even bigger projects. You've shown that in Australia with what you did with the bushfires and the floods. We could do so much more and have big impacts. So those are some of the examples of the kinds of things that we could potentially do. We have a strategy workshop coming up with the core team and all our working group chairs at the beginning of August to start to plan on the assumption that we will get, being optimists, on the assumption that we will have a positive vote, what are the initial plans going to be? So if you've seen your club presentation, you'll know that we are proposing an interim regional council to start up from the 1st of July 2023. So we'll be looking at things like, what do we need to have in place for that interim regional council to be set up? What will it look like? How are we going to select and train those people? We'll be working very closely with the current and incoming district governors, because as you know, districts will remain in place right throughout the pilot. So that will be an exciting opportunity to actually put a bit more detail to the thinking that we have been doing up until this point in time. So those are the major things that we've been working on. We do regularly connect with Rotary International. We do have to go back to the board in October with costings, so that workshop in August is going to help us to do those cost estimates as well. And if anybody wants to get involved in some of these working groups and things going forward, then go into the Have Your Say on the website. We're always looking for your ideas, your thoughts, and people's skills to help us move forward. So, Kiro, I'll hand back to you, because we've got about half our time left, and it will be great to have some questions.
Super. Thank you, Ingrid, and thank you, Amanda. We do have some questions coming through there. I think you've dealt with Lisa's question about the clarity of voting, but if Lisa, if you do want to still have a question there, could you pop something else in the chat, please? Tracy White has a question about the video, so over to you, please, Tracy.
I just wondered where it might be available, Amanda, once it is available, please.
Certainly, I'll send it out through the regional Regionalization District Representative. Sorry, I try to refrain from using acronyms, so I didn't want to just say RDR in case you didn't know what that was. So your Regionalization District Representative will have it, let's say next week, because I know they misspelled Noel Travaskis's last name, so we've got to fix that up before it goes out. So yeah, should be either end of this week or early next week. I will get it to your RDRs, and then you'll be able to get it off them. But if you want it directly, I've put my email address in the chat, so send me an email and I can send it to you directly. That's no issue, Tracy.
Awesome, thank you.
If anyone would like to do a little video snip and send it to us, please do that too.
Yes, I'm collecting quotes from Rotarians across the district. So you saw a few of them there. Rebecca, Sean, if you want to do a video and send me your quote, or send it in writing with a photo of yourself. Again, my email address is in the chat box, or Kara can get to me. You can find me all over Facebook. Just let me know and we can make that a thing. Glenda, what district are you in? Sorry, Glenda's asked who her RDR is.
9800 Melbourne, Victoria.
Okay, I will look that up unless you know off the top of your head, Ingrid.
I should do, but I can't remember.
It is, sorry, Excel spreadsheet opening now.
Grant Hocking, I think.
Yes.
I think it's Grant, yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, if we've covered that one, then Tracy has another question about our Islander cousins.
I have good contacts in many of the Islander places, as does my partner through his volleyball space. And the general consensus from them is they don't like being told by their big cousins what to do. Culturally, how does this centralised model fit with many of those places, given that we have quite a number of countries in our zone?
I'll pick that one up. Tracy, thank you for asking that. That is a question very dear to my heart, because I'm from District 9920, which has 7 Pacific Island countries in it. We are engaging with all of our Pacific Island countries as part of the briefing, but one of the principles of the new regional council will be representation. We haven't yet, as you can imagine, when it comes to creating a representative council that has many elements to think about in doing that. But and it isn't just the Pacific Islands, I have to say. David Barton is on the call, and I know that for parts, and so is Eniki. So I know that for many parts of Australia and for New Zealand, it is a concern that we are representative and that those who might see themselves as smaller have a voice. So initially, obviously we're engaging with everybody in terms of the briefings, but it is high on the priority list of looking at how we ensure representation. One of the principles is that everyone that roles, which will be elected, will be open to every Rotarian. We're also very aware that for someone from a very small country, a club in a very small country, they won't necessarily have the profile that somebody might say from a large city in Australia or New Zealand. So we do have to think about how we make sure that process is equitable as well. So equity and inclusion is one of our underlying principles.
It's going to be an interesting balancing act in that regard.
It is,
but
yeah.
Leanne Lyons has a question about saving members' money. Over to you, please, Leanne.
Hi, everyone. By the way, thank you for all the people involved in this behind the scenes already and all the work that you've done so far for us all. So my question was just how, is there any indication yet on potentially saving money for members compared to what we pay now in both the Rotary International and district fees? So is there a chance that things might get a little bit cheaper for members and to continue to be Rotarians, because often cost is a factor, particularly for dinner clubs.
Thanks, Leanne. Nice to see you. It is certainly one of the key areas that we are very, very conscious of. Obviously, because we haven't done a huge amount of the detailed work yet, we can't draw a straight line between saying this is the current state of cost for members and this is what we think the future state is, because there's a lot of work to be done. But we do think there is opportunity for significant savings through automation of current processes, through reducing duplication. We think that there could be a chance that, certainly aiming to make sure that costs to members are reduced. We know that cost can be a barrier for potential members. David Egan's on the line. David, I don't know whether you want to have David's part of our core team to have some input, because I know it's something that you've addressed on a number of occasions. Sorry to put you on the spot, but why not?
Yeah, no, why not? Thanks, Ingrid. Yeah, it's a really good question, and we get it all the time. And as Ingrid said, we don't have quantifiable exact answers, but that's what the pilot is about, to actually explore and test and find out. Because why would you do something if it's going to cost more? We've got to make sure it costs less for our members. And as Ingrid said, that we, right throughout Rotary, people are concerned about the cost, and the modern volunteering trends are people do want to volunteer, but they don't want to pay to volunteer. So we have to adapt to that to make sure that happens. So yeah, it is an unclear answer, Leanne, that we're giving in this regard, but we're very, very conscious of making sure that savings are made. And when you think about it, when you've got 21 districts, as we have now, all doing the same sorts of things, surely there must be a more efficient way of doing that. And, we're not saying it's going to be totally sort of just going from 21 to 1 as a regional council. But you can imagine there are a number of things, if they're being duplicated, that they could be done more efficiently, and then therefore reduce the cost to the members. So that duplication thing is a big issue. as is the technology. And, RI is actually backing us, I think, in that regard. Ingrid, they're planning to invest in some new technology to help us to, particularly clubs, to reduce the costs through automation and so on.
Yeah,
sorry. I was just going to speak to that and say, like Ingrid touched on before, how far we've come in the last 2 years because COVID meant we couldn't travel, we couldn't meet face to face. If we look at the savings that we've had just from that experience, I know that districts are handing money back to RI because they've saved so much over the last 2 years because, technology has taken the place of travel. And, in addition to, reducing duplication, the technology advances we're looking to implement across the region will, ideally, in addition, save us more funds there. Because, if we don't have to travel, that saves a lot. If we don't have so many people traveling, that saves a lot. There's a lot of scope there to be saving money. And that will ideally funnel down to the, members' fees. But we can't say by how much yet because we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Yeah.
We're very conscious of it, and we know that Rotarians everywhere want to see a reduction in the costs, and the RI dues are going up because of the cost of running Rotary. So if we can find some ways to put a downward pressure on, and RI is very keen on that. So that's what we've got to seek to achieve anyway.
Great. Thank you, David and Ingrid. I think at this stage we might go over to Jane Loxton's question that she sent in advance, and that was to do with Rotaract and why they were left out of the voting. Ingrid, over to you, please.
Okay, I'll just, if I may, they haven't been left out of the voting. What happened was when we went to RI for clarity around the actual voting process and how it would work, it became clear that although Elevate Rotaract came into the Council of Legislation 3 years ago, the actual code of policies hasn't, in terms of voting, hasn't reflected that yet. So we are actually talking to Rotary International, potentially to the board, to see if we are able to make an exception for Rotaract to have a counting vote in our zone. We, as a project, we are committed to Rotaract being part of the project. They have been right from the beginning. We have many Rotaractors involved in it, and we want them to have a say. And we see them not as Rotarians of the future, because many of them are Rotarians now. They are our Rotarians now. They are younger Rotarians who are looking at Rotary differently. So we want their say now, and they will have a say. So we're working on that one. It's simply a rule, for want of a better word, a rules issue. So we are committed in our project to have them having a say.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ingrid. Lynn Duckham has a question about DG visits. Over to you, please, Lynn.
Thanks, Kara. Let me actually see you. I'll get rid of that screen. My concern again is that how I heard Stuart saying, and that's very true in a lot of cases, that DG's visits are not something that is the highlight of a club's visit. However, having visited a whole bunch of clubs throughout the Pacific in particular, and Asia and other parts because I work in those areas, DG's visits are in fact the highlight of the clubs, and they think it's pretty important, and there's a lot of cultural importance attached to that as well. So I'm just curious as to how we would be managing, how that would be being managed. It's back to the cultural issues. And I've got a whole bunch of other questions which I'll keep quiet on, but particularly given we're dealing with a whole bunch of different cultures in this zone, how do we do it without doing something like the public sector reform program that went out across the Pacific and New Zealand many years ago, and the return of colonialism that came back through about 15, 20 years ago as well? How do we not do that? How do we respect what different clubs appreciate in different countries?
Something what we have thought about a lot, and first up we ask them. We ask them what they want. I'm, as a district governor for now, past governor for 9920, I'm well aware of how district governor visits are viewed very differently there from in many other clubs, for, as you've very well explained, for a variety of reasons. And I've been thinking about that question myself, and I think we need to find a way that we maintain the connection. I think one of the reasons those visits are so important is traditionally the connection between those clubs and their home district hasn't always been very visible or very strong. I've certainly seen a tremendous change in connection between districts and Pacific Island clubs in the last 2 years with the use of technology like this that has brought them very much closer and a much better understanding of how things work. So I think we will continue to do that. The other thing is that we have a good 3 years at least to work out some of these things, and district governors are going to remain in place during that time, and that we are engaging already very closely with governors, past, present, and future. So I see them as having a significant input into how we make sure that that connection continues, how representation that I mentioned before continues, and how we value the cultural input. So a lot of these things, haven't, for a variety of reasons, haven't been developed yet, mainly because we didn't actually have until recently the go-ahead to pursue, and we'll be finding ways to make sure that happens. But it is, one of the core things that we're looking at.
Can I speak to that as well? I think part of the restructure, removing some of the admin tasks from those who are mentoring and supporting the club, also the idea that we will have a look at longer terms will allow those who are leading and supporting these clubs to build better relationships with the clubs, so that the person who might not be called district governor might be area leader, but they have less time they need to spend on administrative tasks, so they can spend more time nurturing and mentoring the clubs in their areas, which means that relationship will build more, which means these visits, when they do happen, will mean more to the leader, but also to the clubs, because this is someone, who is invested in the club, because they see them more, they'll have more contact with them. In addition to the technology, the movement in the technology space, that relationship can be much more ingrained and in depth, rather than just a tokenistic visit, which it is in some areas. I mean, I know it's very important and very well valued in some areas. In some areas, it's kind of more like ticking a box, which is really sad. But ideally, the shift in what these leadership roles will have to cover will ensure that the relationship is more important, which will add more gravity and depth to that relationship. So hopefully, across the whole zone, it will be more valued because it will be a deeper connection.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ingrid, and thanks, Lynn. Glenda Bryson has I guess this is a good question from an accountant. Glenda Bryson has a question about costs. Over to you, please, Glenda.
Well, thank you very much, Caro. And yes, I'm an accountant, and I'm also very concerned, and I've just had a big sneezing attack, so excuse me. I'm also very concerned about the rise of the costs of being a member of Rotary, and whether that's from international and district level. So I'm concerned, and it looks as though Kay Phipps has asked a very similar question, is what's the anticipated cost of this pilot and who's actually bearing that cost? Because ultimately I can see that RI is going to pay for it, but we, the members, are going to pay for it in the end. So we've got any ideas of figures, or how's it going to work? Pardon me.
Yeah. So one of the conditions for the RI board supporting our pilot, as you know, first up, the RI board supported our pilot, and then the Council on Legislation supported too. One of the conditions for the RI board supporting our pilot was that we go back to them with a cost estimate of what we think the project will cost. So we are not asking clubs or districts to pay for the project cost at any stage. So part of the work that we have to do over the next couple of months is come up with an initial cost estimate. Yes, I would hope that it doesn't mean, any future, the fact that we are doing a pilot here, I would hope means that there are cost savings for RI, so that actually there aren't any cost increases there. But certainly in terms of the project, we're not asking districts or clubs to pay anything towards that.
I think also, if I can just add, Ingrid, to that, it's a very good question from an accountant who obviously understands that costs come home to roost in the end.
Yeah.
But the RI board is, continually dealing with this, having to increase the RI dues. And every time it does, everybody gets upset. I think over the next 3 years, it's going up US $11, I think I read somewhere. And so it's always looking for an opportunity, and they're seeing this as an opportunity, perhaps an investment in the pilot to see how we can save money. So getting back to Leanne's question as well, we've really got to make that a priority to seek to save money. And some of the statistics that have come out of RI, they've told us that 85% of RI costs go to supporting DGEs. That's a fair whack of the RI dues if you think about it. And that the annual cost of training of DGs is in the millions. So they're the sort of things that they're hoping that we can find some smart ways to reduce. And the long-term answer of it has to be tested and evaluated. And that's a key component of the pilot, is that we will be setting up some evaluations to make sure that whatever we test over the 3 years is actually valid, and so that proper decisions can be made in the long run. But as Ingrid said, RI is going to cover the cost of the pilot for us, and they see that as an investment in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda. Thank you, David, and thank you, Ingrid. Kay Phipps, you had a who question there. Has that been answered?
It has. Thank you, Kiro. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kay. This 2/3 of the clubs in a district vote is a reasonable sort of barrier to get past. So what sort of assistance are you looking for in terms of promoting in the approach to the vote on the pilot? What sort of help are you after?
Well, if I can take that to start with, and then you can correct me or add if I miss anything, please, Ingrid. I guess really we need to get this pilot going. And in short, that means we need yes votes. If we don't get the pilot going, then all of this is for naught. People have questions, so we need to make sure the questions are coming to us so we can answer the questions so people feel comfortable with a yes vote. We're not asking people to blindly vote yes. Questions, comments, concerns, get them to the core team. Get them to us so we can develop media assets, so we can give you information to pass around your club, your district, your area, your cluster, whatever. So we can answer the questions that are coming out. If we don't have the answers, we'll tell you that. Because some things we don't have the answers to, because a lot of the pilot is working out what it's going to look like. But we need the yes vote to try the pilot, to get the pilot across. From a communications perspective, we need yes. We need lots of yeses. And then we can work out what everything else looks like. Our focus is going to be a collaborative approach. So no one's saying this is what it's going to look like, have the new, here's the new structure. We're giving some guidelines around a structure to start with, because if we give people a blank piece of paper, that, it'll take 3 years to get a starting point, and we don't have that much time. So we're giving a base model to, we're putting a skeleton out there so we can put some meat on the bones. But it's a collaborative process. At every point of this process over the next 3 years, every Rotarian in our zone is going to be able to have their say and their input, for, against, we'll be voting at every, part of this process. So it's, it's an ongoing conversation. But right now, we need people to say yes to have the conversation, yes to get the pilot across, so that we can have a look at what we can make Rotary. Jennifer Jones has come to us saying, imagine Rotary. we have been given the ultimate Imagine Rotary ticket in our zone. Two zones in the whole world have been given this, Great Britain and Ireland and us. Now, we were given this opportunity, this once in a lifetime opportunity, to have such significant input as to how we want this amazing organisation to be structured and run in our zone. Not because they just went, who feels like it, because there were other people who wanted this, but we were prepared. We've been having this conversation for a long time, and we can hit the ground running, but we need the yes vote. So if there's questions out there, get them to us so we can answer them, or we can honestly tell you we don't know and we'll work on it. If people aren't sure, get them to us. We don't know if we don't know. So make us aware of what's going on out there so we can answer the questions, provide the information, and ideally get this pilot across so we can get a yes vote. That's my 2 bits. Sorry, Ingrid, over to you.
No, thank you. I'll just very briefly add to that obviously district governors, particularly because it's right at the beginning of their year, have a number of things that they want to focus on, which is their goals for the year, etc. So they're primarily, we ask them to support their own district representative and to be engaged with them. Peter Frew, who's my co-chair from Melbourne, we regularly engage with all the district governors, with the current governors, the district governors-elect, and then once all the district governors nominee are named, then we will, and start to meet together, we'll engage with that group as well. We have representatives of the last 3 years of governors on our planning group. So, and because districts will still be in place, they are going to have a say, for example, in which functions currently happen at district level could potentially be moved to a regional level, because it would be more efficient and effective for everybody to do that.
Super. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Ingrid. Ros Tierney has a question about where the effort's going on this. Over to you, please, Ros.
That's it. Hi, Caro. I'm sorry. I have COVID at the moment, so I don't want you to see my face. I'm just intrigued. You said you were puzzled at one stage, Caro. There's been a massive effort in promoting a vote and requesting and expecting, after all the effort that's gone on behind the scenes, a vote for yes. And yet I am troubled as a receiver by language like "we need this," and but the "we" and the "us" comes back to the people in the small group rather than the people out in the clubs. Communication has been used as an example of duplication by speakers tonight. One of them in particular being administration. I don't know what that means and why that's bad, but I'm just interested in what the fairness is of having a leadership group for the yes case and no leadership group for an alternative view.
I'm happy to start there. Okay, so I'll start with the admin. When we talk about admin, I think it was noted that district governors have something like 480 administrative tasks that they have to complete. If we can even half some of that by moving it, like Ingrid said, to a regional level, then that frees up more time for them to invest in the clubs. When we talk about a we in terms of we need the vote, when I say it, I'm talking about we as in every Rotarian in our zone, because that gives every Rotarian in our zone the possibility to have a say, an impact, and input into what our structure of governance looks like in our area. when I say we, I'm not talking about the leadership team. I'm not talking about the core team. I'm talking about we as Rotarians in the zone. Stepping back from my role in, working with the team, I just, since day dot, this is something that's that's needed addressing in our zone. There was a bit of chat in the chat box about how long it's been since our governance structure has been reviewed. And the answer is 80 years. Now, when we say yes to a pilot, the idea is we're saying yes to looking at how we can restructure this. The alternate standpoint is no, and that's just saying no to the pilot. So that's not saying no to not changing. It's just saying no to this, to changing this way, if that makes sense. I think I'll hand over to Ingrid for the finer points on that. But just to clarify, when I say we, I mean we as Rotarians in the zone. The club members will speak to their presidents, and the presidents will be the ones voting, and then the district governors vote on that basis as well. So it's a conversation from ground level. It's not a leadership committee saying, we need the little people to do this. Everybody's in this conversation, and everybody has equal weight in this conversation. There's just a group that's, initiating the change, and they're the ones who are giving us this opportunity. And I think that's why it's important that we is every Rotarian, not, a group of people who are, working in the background.
We know that not everybody is going to want this change. The purpose of the current communications, which is happening over July or August until the vote happens in September, is to provide the best information that we can so that people can make an informed choice about the vote. So that's why we have asked the district representatives to do the very best they can, and I have to say they are doing the best they can to get to every club in the zone, to give them an understanding of the work that has been done, why it's been done, and what the vote means, so that they can then make a choice. We are not saying you have to or anything like that. I'm sorry if it comes across as being biased one way or another, because it's not intended to be that way. It's intended to be, this is a vote on, this is an opportunity for you to have a vote and have your say about creating a significant change for our district. And I'll just pick up while we're talking about the vote, David's point. No, the vote relies on 2/3 of clubs in every district, which is a big ask. We know that, for it to go ahead.
Can I just add something, Ingrid?
Yeah, David.
It's all right. I was just going to say, sorry to hear you so unwell, Ros. I know what it's like having that COVID. The thing that's guiding us right from the beginning is our vision statement, which starts with the word together. We're in this together, and it talks about creating change, finding ways to change not only the world but ourselves as well. So this is not, us trying to operate separately. And as Amanda says, it's the collective we feel as leaders that we have an obligation to leave a legacy for the future. Unless we try something, we continue to go downhill as we have for the last 20, 30 years. 30 years, I'd say it. I've been watching it go down. And we're just going to try and find smarter ways of doing it. We want to do it together. So, please bring forward your views. We're really open to the alternative views, and we've taken that approach right from the start. So if you've got concerns, please bring them up to us. Thanks.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, I was talking to one of the regionalisation district representatives on Sunday, and I said, the idea of this pilot is for us to try stuff. Worst case scenario, at the end of 3 years, if we like nothing that we've done, we can come back to where we are now. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And he goes, no, Amanda, that's not the case. And I said, what do you mean? He said, look, if we come back to where we are now, we'll end up with Australia as one district and New Zealand as one district, because our membership numbers will just keep falling. The statistics are out there and you can look them up, but I think we've recruited something like 1.2 million members over the last like 5 years, but as many that we've recruited have left because we're not meeting the expectations of these volunteers. Now, it's not that we're, you know, completely irrelevant. We're just not keeping up to speed. What today's volunteer wants and needs from a volunteer opportunity is somewhat different to what they're getting. Yeah. So they come to us because they want to do good. They want to have an impact. But then they join a club that, you know, has meetings and we toast the Queen and we, you know, say the anthem, and that's amazing and perfect if that's what rings true to your members. But, you know, then, you know, you have to be in for X amount of years before you can serve at the top level. To be a district governor, you really do need to be retired, because who's got the time or energy or even sometimes the finance to hold a position like that? With the current administrative tasks on top of the mentoring and supporting of the club tasks. So, you know, if we get young, excited professionals who want to lead this organization, they can't. And there's a problem with that. Yeah. So that's one of the things we're trying to address with this pilot, making leadership roles more doable for a greater scope of people, other than, you know, retired older people. Nothing against retired older people, but I mean, I'd like to one day, ideally soon, put my hand up for a leadership role at that level, but I can't. I've got a, you know, 17-month-old little man running around out there. We'd like to have another one soon if we can. I'm not near retirement. I don't have a spare $10,000 or $20,000 that I can throw at this role, but I have a lot of other things I could give. But in the current structure, it's beyond my grasp, you know, and there's a lot of other young people in my position or similar positions who want to have impact at this, but it's hard. So that's one of the things they're looking to, you know, rejig. Lynn's just mentioned you've got a 30-year-old female DG who works full-time. That's awesome, but it's very much the exception. Yeah. And I think it should be, you know, we've got a few who are out there and that's amazing, but, you know, we've got to make it more doable for a greater range of people.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Ingrid. I think at this stage we might come to our last couple of questions. I'm going over to past Governor Deb Gimblett for her question, and then I think a good one to finish up on is what happens if we don't vote yes. So your question there, Joan Kiernan, is coming up after Deb Gimblett's. Over to you, please, Deb.
Thanks, Kiro. Yeah, I 200% agree with everything that's been said tonight, but I do also know on a very simple, basic club level, they don't want to know all this, the real good stuff. We just need to keep the message, I believe we've got to keep the message really simple, and you've got to sell the benefits to the club. Why should they support this? And that message needs to be really simple. So I just want to say that, because I look 200%. I support what you're doing and saying, but I think we've got to keep it simple.
Yeah, Deb, I agree. We've been working on that and trying to make sure that, you know, in the club presentation. So anything else you can add would be very useful. I mean, it's basically what we're aiming to do. The clubs are at the heart. We're not, what's the word? Without it sounding wrong, we're not trying to change clubs, but what we want to do is to provide better, more appropriate support to clubs in ways that are more meaningful for them. And so we will be seeking input from them as to how to make that you know, better. So to give an example, it might be things like introducing automation that enables them to take away some of those administrative functions that you know, even if you've got a club of 10 and a club of 100, they still have to do the same kinds of reporting and invoicing and dues and all those kinds of things. If we could make automation actually take a lot of that grind away, that would be a huge benefit for them. So some of those, having the area leader model, which is focused on purely supporting them, it's a true leadership role. It's not an administrative role.
Yeah. So no, you're doing a great work. Great work.
It's challenging to get some of these messages really clear and succinct enough. I know Rob has just said some clubs couldn't give a rat's, and I know that's very they couldn't care less. They actually don't want to know what happens at a district level, and what happens up there or whatever you want to call it doesn't mean a thing. And apathy is going to be a real issue with the vote, and where obviously the fact that a abstention or a non-vote means no, which is the rules that we're working by, is a challenge.
Yeah. Well, we've got, of course, we've got the new club. Just to Amanda, that's exactly what our club is. It's cause-driven, hardly meets at all, and exactly what you're talking about, what we need to be today. In fact, I'd love to have your recording. I've got your details because we're having a new members' evening on this coming Monday, and it will be. I'll have 10 of them there, and it'll be a great opportunity to be able to show that video because they don't know that they're not tarnished with the old thinking. And I'm sure that they're the ones that we want to hear the message.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my vote, my club, sorry, we're 2 years old at the moment. We meet once a month. We do everything through Microsoft Teams, where we have a global membership. And so some of our members aren't in the zone. So to them, it's kind of a null and void, but we belong as a chartered club within one of the districts within the zone, so thereby it applies to us as a club. But yeah, it's a very important conversation to be having. And yeah, the issue is as the core team has all this information, and you've got some people who want to delve into the heart of it. They want to know the guts and ins and outs and everything. And some people are like, just the very much, so what does that mean to me as a member? And, hopefully it'll mean less dues, but we can't say that yet because we don't know definitively. Hopefully it'll mean a better relationship with your leadership team because they have less administrative stuff to do. Hopefully that means more access to leadership roles should these people want them. Hopefully it means one voice when, like Stuart Hill talked about, if the top of Toyota want to talk to us, well, they know who to go to. Instead of having, 40 people they need to talk to, there's one. And then that person can, speak for us and speak to us and speak with us. But we've got to try this to find out what it can look like. And that's what it comes back to, at this point.
Thank you.
Super. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Deb. And thanks, Ingrid. Well, the last question I foreshadowed a moment ago. Over to you, please, Joan Kiernan.
Thank you, Carol. Apologies for the COVID-y voice. It isn't COVID, it's the flu. Sorry to bring a negative note in, but getting 2/3 of members of clubs and all districts to say yes is a massive big ask at the end of what's obviously already been a huge load of work to get RI to agree to this. So what happens if we don't get all the yeses that we need?
That's a very good question, Joan. I mentioned earlier that we have a strategy workshop at the beginning of August where we will be exploring what that plan B is. There are opportunities. We have 6 working groups, plus we now have an IT group as well, looking at specific opportunities to make changes in their areas. So those 5 groups, one is looking at internal communications, one at the membership experience, one at governance and organizational models. One is around public image, one is leadership and development. We have an org design group, that's merged with the governance one, and then we're looking at IT. So there will still be opportunities to make some changes. Each of those working groups has identified some key objectives and some actions that they can take, which we will be confirming at that workshop, but we won't be able to make the same leap of change that we would do if we go down the regionalisation path. So it doesn't mean we're not changing. It doesn't mean we can't change by any stretch of the imagination, but it will be incremental change rather than a step change, as I said at the beginning. So I think in terms of addressing the decline, significant decline, and engagement of members. I mean, one of the key issues we have is keeping people engaged in those first 2 to 3, 4 years of membership and making Rotary attractive enough. So we have some things in the pipeline.
Thank you.
Super. Thanks, Joan, and thanks, Ingrid. So just to sum up there, Ingrid, and just to get the focus back on it, we talk about regionalisation, but we're talking about a regionalisation pilot where if it doesn't work out, we revert to a district structure. So this is not about a vote on a permanent change. It's about a vote on an exciting pilot, an opportunity to collectively build a better future or design a better future.
Yes, you're right, because that's why districts are remaining in place. Districts are the governance structure for Rotary International. So that's why districts will remain in place for the whole time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you. Would you like to join me, please, in thanking Amanda and Ingrid for a job well done? Well done.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Great work. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And remember, we do Tuesday nights. We do have membership voice on offer, and we have some great stories coming up. So thank you for joining us.